Welcome to the Exam Room Live, brought to you by the Physicians Committee. Hi there, I'm the weight loss champion, Chuck Carroll, and this is the healthiest program you will see anywhere online today. We appreciate you joining us right here on Facebook and on YouTube. Today's lead question: beans. We know that they're good for the heart, but are they also good for your waist? Can they help you lose weight? Well, we are going to find out when we open up the doctor's mailbag and answer your health and nutrition questions, all about the vegan diet. And the man with the plan who is here to help raise our health IQs and answer those questions is Dr. Neal Barnard. So if there's a question that you would like to ask Dr. Barnard about beans or anything else, go ahead, leave it right now in the comments or in the chat. You can also tweet them to me or find me on Instagram. Send it to me there at Chuck Carroll WLC with the hashtag Exam Room Live. Already a lot of other great questions in the doctor's mailbag as well, like can a mostly plant-based diet help improve heart health? And then stevia, should you be cutting back on it, or do you even need to worry? It's a zero-calorie sweetener. We're going to get Dr. Barnard to weigh in on that and so many more. So again, if there's a question that you would like to ask Dr. Barnard, the comments or the chat box, that is the place to leave it. And right now, let's go ahead and kick things off. Open up that doctor's mailbag and welcome Dr. Barnard to the show. Sir, thank you so very much for being here.
Good to see you, Chuck.
The pleasure is always mine. I'm so excited when you get here because the feedback that we get from the exam roomies is that they love these shows because you learn a little bit about everything. So when we say that we are raising your nutrition and health IQs, that's exactly what we're going to do. So are you ready for the first question?
Let's jump in.
All right. This one comes to us from Miriam. She wants to know, are beans a good thing to eat if you're trying to lose weight?
Short answer, yes, they are. And that's for a couple of reasons. Now, beans have kind of taken an attack. People talk about them having lectins in them that can be harmful. The fact of the matter is you're never going to eat a raw bean. You're going to cook them. Hopefully you cook them really well so they're nice and soft and the lectins aren't an issue at all. But with regard to weight loss, there are a couple things. First of all, beans are high in natural complex carbohydrate. And if you do the calorie count, a gram of fat has 9 calories, animal fat, vegetable oil, 9 calories. A gram of carbohydrate has 4 calories, so very low. But beans have more than that. They're the number one source of fiber, and fiber has effectively no calories at all, but it fills you up, and so you're going to be less likely to eat other things. So it's great for losing weight, and they have one last feature. Our team studied the effect of plant-based foods, including beans, on your metabolism. And beans, along with a healthy plant-based diet, will augment your after-meal calorie burn. Not a lot, but about 15%, something like that. So, yep, beans, plug them in.
All right. Next question comes to us from Pamela. She wants to know, would you consider a mostly plant-based diet still to have heart health benefits? She says that she eats about a 70 to 80% plant-based diet.
Yeah. Different people are different in the amount of risk that they can take. But my analogy might be with smoking. If a person cuts out 70% of the cigarettes, how are they going to do with the rest? And the answer is some of them are going to get cancer and some will not. When a person goes on a mostly plant-based diet, any change you make is a good change, and that's really good. But my hope is that by going partly plant-based, you'll start to discover that there are some really cool foods out there, that your spaghetti is even better when it doesn't have a ground beef sauce on it, and that your fish tacos can be replaced by the bean burrito, and if you do it right, it's pretty tasty. So when you do it all the way, that's really when the health problems melt away much more quickly. So there's one other piece of it, that when a person, say, hasn't had a cigarette at all in 2 months, they don't really miss it too much because you've lost your taste for it. But if you had a cigarette yesterday, you want it today. And let's say it's chicken or fish. If you had it yesterday, you want it today. But if you just kind of broke free and haven't had it at all, you discover you don't crave it. You lose interest in it. And so then you've got not only a really good healthy diet, but a much easier time just sticking with it, as opposed to kind of tempting yourself with with the occasional bits of animal products now and then, which makes it really harder for people.
Solid advice. I want to take a second to say hi to Anna Kay, who's watching us right now over in London. Hi, Anna. Thanks for tuning in today. That's pretty cool. Peggy has a good question. Peggy has a sweet tooth, Dr. Barnard, and she wants to know, is it better to give up stevia cold or reduce it gradually, or do we even need to worry about that?
I don't think you need to worry about it. I wouldn't worry about it terribly. And let me say something that might sound controversial. I don't think you really need to worry about small amounts of sugar. If you're putting a little bit of sugar here or there on foods that you eat, who really cares? The reason I say that is your body is designed to run on glucose. Glucose is what powers your brain, powers your muscles, and so your body is designed exactly to use that. Where we really run into trouble is when people use massive amounts in your soda, 16 tablespoons or teaspoons in your soda, or when you mix it into cookie dough with butter and shortening, and then that combination of sugar with all that fat is unhealthy. But even a little bit of sugar, I don't think is really a big deal.
You want to know the crazy thing, though, about the standard American diet? My perception of it is that there is nothing about a little bit of sugar in that standard American diet. I remember reading that the average person in this country will eat about a cinder block's worth of added sugar throughout the course of the year and really not even realize it. You think about how heavy a cinder block is, that's a lot of sugar.
Yeah, that's right. But I think you're exactly right. And you don't need it at all. However, I think its worst attribute really is that it's sort of the Trojan horse. The sugar lures you in, and all that fat hiding inside is what's going to really do the damage. So when people say carbs or sugar, and they're thinking about a donut, look at the recipe. Look at the nutrient intake. Most of the calories are maybe 50-50 are fat. And if you ever made some cookie dough, look at how much fat had to go in there. So the sugar is what we're attracted to. The fat is the bigger health risk.
All right, let's move on and take a question from our friend Allison Mahoney. Says that I'm learning more about the correlation between vitamin D deficiency and a range of chronic conditions. Do you think vitamin D tests will become more commonplace in the future?
Well, first of all, hi, Allison, and thank you not only for watching, but thank you for your support of what we're doing here and all that you've done for the cause we share in so many ways. So hats off to you. But yeah, your question is exactly spot on. And yes, I do think that vitamin D testing is becoming more and more frequent and really should be. And the observations started with just geography. People living nearer the equator tended to do better on a number of health measures compared to people who were at more extreme latitudes. And the question was, why? Is it the temperature? What is it? And what it seems to be, according to a lot of studies, is that if you're nearer the equator, more vitamin D is formed in your skin. And vitamin D is not just there to help you absorb calcium for stronger bones, but it also appears to be a cancer preventer to a degree. And every time we turn around, there is a new application, if you will, for this. We need more study. But yes, we need to study how it works. And people who are low in vitamin D need to find that out, and they have no way of knowing. You can't feel it, and the way we find it is with really simple blood tests that every doctor can do.
I want to say hi to Tofu Tuesday, who's watching this show on Wednesday live right now. Hi, Tofu. Thanks for watching. And also, congratulations to Betsy, who just shared that she has switched over to a plant-based diet, down 29 pounds so far. That is fantastic progress. So please keep it up. To that end, though, Dr. Barnard, a question from Annie Sparkle at 1208 wants to know, how do I keep motivated to stay on a healthy diet? I seem to be all or nothing and wondered if you have any tips.
Great question. When people come in to see us, either here at the Barnard Medical Center or maybe they join a research study, they usually have one thing in mind, and that's a particular health target. I want to get my blood sugar down, or my hot flashes are killing me. I want to get rid of my hot flashes, and a diet change will help them. But as time goes on, sometimes the motivation comes up as follows. Okay, I feel great. My hot flashes are gone, or 90% better, or my diabetes is dramatically better. I'm on less medicine. I wonder, do I really need to stick to it 100%, or can I go 90, 85, 70, and they start to back off the healthy diet that got them the results, and then the symptoms come back. And so you kind of stay in this never land of a really good diet or a not so healthy diet going back and forth. What often solves that problem is looking at other motivators. When people start thinking, okay, it's not just my cholesterol level or my blood sugar level, I'm also eating for the planet. You don't want to have animal products. I don't think it's too much to say if you're not following a vegan diet, you're really not an environmentalist. Let's put it to work to save the planet, or let's save the animals we share the planet with. Americans eat 1 million animals every hour. Do we really want to be part of that? For so many people, especially young people, that's a huge motivator. And for people who are maybe in the next generation after them, oftentimes their number one motivation is not their own health. It's their kids' health. And they see their kids who are now 15, 16, 17. And they're concerned, the kids are concerned about their weight. Or in some families, the doctor says, you're borderline, you're on the borderline of diabetes as a teenager. And so we think, wait, I need to eat in a healthy way so that I can help my kids to do the same. It does not work to shake your finger at kids and blame screen time or other things for the health problems they have. So for me, the point I'm making is that motivations matter. Look at these other things to build your motivation. And there are ways to get you there. Look at the movie Seaspiracy that came out. I guarantee you're going to watch that movie and never eat fish again. Or What the Health, or Forks Over Knives. There are so many resources out there that help people to want to make changes and to stay motivated to continue. And I hope you'll continue to watch the Exam Room and look at pcrm.org and all the things that we have to offer. And these things make us really want to make the world a better place through our healthy diet.
And absolutely. And also know that there are a lot of people pulling for you right now. So stick with it. I think that you can do just that. Let's backtrack to beans, Dr. Barnard. A question from Chrissa at 1208. What is your take on canned beans versus fresh?
For the longest time, I would never make beans from scratch and always canned, because let's face it, they are really convenient. They're ready when you are. And I think they serve a great function. And if you're concerned about the sodium, which can be high in some brands, they also sell them without added sodium. So keep them handy. However, I've learned something, which is that it's really easy to cook them from scratch. The reason I didn't want to do it was I heard you have to soak them overnight, which is true. But I realized that during the soaking process, beans don't need any supervision at all. You just put them in the pot, put some water on them, and leave them alone, and they soak themselves. So that doesn't require any time. And then in the morning, drain them off, change the water, and you cook them. And cook them until they're really good and soft. They shouldn't be al dente. But they don't need supervision then either. So I discovered it doesn't take your time, to cook beans. And once they're done, you can do different things with them. The other day I made some black beans, and I took an immersion blender. These things, you go, you cook your beans, and then you make them kind of smooth and pureed, put them in little Tupperware containers, freeze them, and now you've got a week's worth of meals. It's really easy and fun. So canned beans, they're okay, they're convenient, but you might want to make them from scratch too.
I love that. And you actually, in the soy series, the series of podcasts that we just did on the Waves study, you gave your recipe for soybeans that you did. I thought that was really, really interesting too. Is that when you kind of discovered that, making beans from scratch really isn't all that hard?
Yeah. Now with soybeans, we used our secret weapon, which was the Instant Pot, where you put them in the Instant Pot, put about 2 inches of water over the top, and you got soybeans cooked in 40 minutes without any pre-soaking, and that's fine. But if you don't have a pressure cooker, you can just do it in a plain old pot on the stove. You soak them the night before, cook them for a good long time, like about an hour or maybe even a little bit more, the next morning, and they're going to work great.
Another one on beans. This is a popular one. The plant-based PA wondering at 1209, do you need to pre-soak beans before cooking them to improve nutrient absorption?
Not to improve nutrient absorption, but it really reduces the cooking time. So let them soak 8, 9, 10 hours, and they will cook much, much faster. One little trick. Some people are concerned that their water, their tap water, is high in calcium. The calcium will enter the little skin on each bean and make it kind of leathery. If you put a little bit of salt in the soaking water, the salt will keep the calcium from entering. At least that's what we believe is happening. And then after they're done soaking, you discard that water and you discard the added salt, and then you cook them up, and you'll discover they're nice and soft.
Let's take a question now from DB on Twitter. Switching gears, you were just talking about seaspiracy. Here's an interesting one. DB wants to know, are the heavy metals that are found in seafood also found in seaweed?
No, for the most part. Some exceptions. If you go to a Japanese restaurant and you get your cucumber roll or your asparagus roll or sweet potato roll, get the vegan rolls. The nori that they're wrapped in is not high in heavy metals, and neither is the wakame in your miso soup. But we are concerned about the hijiki. That's one that we encourage people not to eat for exactly that reason.
All right, let's take a question here from Kelsey. First of all, Kelsey says, thanks for doing the podcast. It's inspired me to adopt this way of eating, and I have not looked back. Well, thank you, Kelsey. Very kind. So here is the question, Dr. Barnard. Wondering if HDL can be too high. Kelsey says that their HDL is 105, which made their total cholesterol very high. Should they be concerned?
No, not about HDL. HDL is not the knight in shining armor that we thought it was. We had the idea 15 years ago that if you had a really high HDL, it was going to protect you against heart attack. That probably is not true. But a high HDL will not hurt you either, so far as we know. The really bad part about a cholesterol test is still LDL. If that's above 100, we're getting nervous and we want it to be lower. That the LDL cholesterol should be low.
All right, let's take a question here from Laura, see if we can get her some help. She writes, I'm gaining weight and don't get, this one, she's got a little bit of a typo. Basically, she's eating weight, but she's eating a low-calorie, nutrient-dense diet. What might she be missing here?
I'm sorry, Chuck, I didn't quite understand the question. She's eating
what she considers to be a low-calorie, nutrient-dense diet, but still gaining weight. So what might be happening here?
Okay. Well, first of all, we do want to eat plenty of food so that we're not hungry. Because if you're hungry on this, you don't feel full or well served, then you're going to eat again and again. You might eat less healthful foods. So what's the answer? The answer is to eat grains, beans, vegetables, fruits. Those foods are filling. They have a lot of fiber to fill you up and make you feel satisfied, but they don't have the fat, which is the calorie-dense part. And so for the vast majority of people, whatever you're eating now, if you switch to a completely plant-based diet, and for right now, if weight loss is a big goal for you, I would encourage you to set aside the nuts, seeds, and even the avocados. They may be healthful and organic and whatever, but they're pretty fatty, and it's going to slow down your weight loss. Set those aside and just let the weeks go by. Follow that way of eating. Don't worry too much about portion sizes and see what happens.
Dr. Barnard, back to the Waves series, podcast series that we were doing. We were talking about the effect of soy on menopause. We actually also discussed how there's a myth out there that soy can cause a man to grow breast tissue. To that end, Barbara has a question, wants to know if someone already has man boobs, can a low-fat, whole-food, plant-based diet help reverse those things?
Yes, very much so. Here's what's going on. You did not get man boobs, breast enhancement. This did not come from eating soy. That's kind of the locker room myth. Where they come from is that Hank is busily eating burgers and pizza and typical American foods. And as you gain more body fat from eating that, your body fat cells aren't just dormant bags of calories. They are estrogen factories. So a man gains weight and his fat cells then are estrogen factories. And what I mean by that is testosterone goes into the fat cell, estrogen comes out. Fat cells have what's called an aromatase enzyme that reduces testosterone and increases estrogen. It just converts one to the other. And so it then causes all kinds of issues. In women, it will increase the risk of postmenopausal breast cancer. In men, it increases the likelihood of breast enhancement and all kinds of other issues. So the problem is the animal-based high-calorie diet.
Bone broth is a popular food for a lot of the fad diets that are out there right now. Matter of fact, if you go down the soup aisle, you'll see boxes of just that, bone broth. Caprice is wondering whether or not it's actually healthy for you, though.
No, there's no reason it's I'm sorry to say there's sort of a never-ending supply of foods that have a health claim of one type or another, and it gets some fatism associated with it. And bone broth is the granddaddy of all of them. There's no value to it whatsoever.
Question from Sandra at 1222. Does cooking affect fiber? I'm assuming that Sandra's referring again to beans here, Dr. Barnard.
Yeah, no, it doesn't. Now, if you're eating high fiber foods, you do want to cook them so that they're edible and digestible. I'm thinking specifically about beans. There should be no al dente beans. You got to cook them so that they're digestible. Also, the cruciferous vegetables. You'll discover if you have cauliflower or Brussels sprouts or broccoli, that if you cook them more, they're more digestible. If you left them a little too crunchy, they're going to be hard to digest. So the fiber will still be there, but they'll be more digestible when you cook them more.
All right. We talked a little bit about the sweet tooth earlier when we had a question about stevia, but we have another one here from Wendell who wants to know, what can I do to reduce my sweet tooth even more? How can I get those sugary cravings out of my mind?
One thing I'd suggest you do is go to the store and stock up on fruit, blueberries, bananas, oranges, clementines. So it's amazing the ever-growing variety of fruit that is there. Some Fuji apples, some Honeycrisp apples. Have plenty of them. Get maybe a cantaloupe. And when you get the cantaloupe home, don't just leave it sitting there on your counter. Open it up, cut it up into bite-sized pieces, put it into a tub, put the tub in your fridge. Here's what will happen. You'll discover that you're surrounded by foods. If you're like most people, you'll be a little peckish now and then, and you'll pick some up and you'll eat it. There are natural sugars there. There's not a lot, but there is enough. There's also water and fiber. And so that fills you up. It gives you a little bit of kind of a sugary flavor, but in the most natural possible way. And you'll discover that your desire to go have some other kind of candy bar kind of thing just naturally goes down. So surround yourself with these healthy things. Make sure you have extra to share, and you'll discover that your sweet tooth gets contained pretty quickly.
All right. You knew this question was coming about a show on beans. Patrick here at 1227. Regarding beans, how do you manage farts? He's asking for a friend.
Okay, let me answer for a friend. There are natural compounds in beans that can cause gasiness. As time goes on, you'll discover that if you haven't had beans much at all and you had more, you will adapt to it. It just kind of goes away or greatly reduces. But here's the secret. It's dose related. So if you're a person who says, well, I've had this much steak, I should have this much beans, that's too much. Your digestive tract isn't used to that. So start really small. It's number one. Just have smaller amounts. Secondly, cook them like crazy. So if you're cooking beans from scratch, make sure that you cook them until they really are soft. They should not be crunchy little rocks. If you bought canned beans, make a note of the brand that you bought. And this goes for chickpeas, for any kind of bean. If you open it up and they are hard and crunchy, don't buy that brand again. They should be soft. They're going to be more digestible for you.
All right. Let's see here. This is nice from Catherine. We were talking about sweet treats. She writes, I had a delicious lunch of sliced peaches, blueberries, and fresh mint from my garden with a friend on her balcony, and suddenly everything in life just seemed to make sense. That I don't know if that's going to bring clarity to life, but that certainly does sound delicious. We we have a question here from Eli. Is a pea protein supplement for an athlete safe? What do you think about that?
Sure, it's fine. It beats the heck out of what people have been doing in the past. when in the past, the dairy industry has really been pushing chocolate milk, saying it's got the sugars, it's got the fats that you need, but it also has estrogens in it and has other things you don't need. So far as we know, that plant-based proteins are safe. However, you're raising a question, or implicit in your question is, really, do you need that? And for the most part, athletes don't need extra protein powders and things like that. It's true, you're burning a lot of calories and your muscles need to repair. But when you burn a lot of calories, your body senses that. It increases your appetite. You take in more food, and along with the food, the protein just comes in along with it. It's like when you're running, your body senses that your oxygen needs are increasing. You take in more air, the oxygen is part of the air, and you just take it in naturally. This is just a homeostatic mechanism. So you don't really need them, but evidence we have suggests that they are safe.
This one, I think, is going to be right in your wheelhouse. It's a question from Brishi at 1228. Wants to know, will a plant-based diet with lots of beans and rice help with hypothyroidism? They go on to say that they're not able to lose weight currently on a vegan diet, but they are eating some junk food. They want to switch over to a whole food plant-based diet.
We need more evidence, or I guess I should say more research on this, but the Adventist Health Study 2 addressed this question. They looked at different dietary patterns and looked at who had the most thyroid problems and who had the least thyroid problems. And the results came back rather definitively that the people who had the most animal products in their diet, I'm talking about daily meat eaters, had a higher risk, first of all, of hyperthyroidism. The vegans had the lowest risk. And then that's Graves' disease. And then when we look at hypothyroidism or Hashimoto's thyroiditis, once again, the vegans did the best. However, that suggests that a plant-based diet is going to be good for both. What has not yet happened and should happen is a randomized clinical trial where people with hypothyroidism are split into two groups, and one group goes on a low-fat vegan diet to see how they do. That study's never been done. But many people are not waiting. They are going ahead and just doing a plant-based diet on their own to see if they get better. I mean, there's no risk. You tell your endocrinologist, monitor my thyroid. I'm going vegan. See what I do. And in fact, in my book, Your Body in Balance, I mentioned, I go through all this in detail, and I give a number of examples. Wendy Sachs is a good friend to this program and to PCRM, who had hyperthyroidism, went on a plant-based diet, and it resolved. And there are many others, Nancy and others who I describe in Your Body in Balance, who did this for hypothyroidism and found that it was life-changing and helped them to improve dramatically. The thing we don't know is how many people are going to get better. Is it 80% of people get better? Is it 10%? We don't know. But if I were hypothyroid, I would run, not walk, to a low-fat, completely plant-based diet. Let your doctor know what you're doing. Do supplement with vitamin B12 and have at it.
All right. Back to beans. Back to beans. Here's one from Chi at 1229. Chi loves beans. Says that they eat 2 to 3 cups of them a day. Wondering, though, is there an optimal amount of beans that they should be eating every day? How much is too much? How little is too little?
Well, 2 to 3 cups a day, you're getting pretty heroic there. In our plant-based, in our approach to hot flashes, which we talked about in other programs. It was vegan, low-fat, and a half a cup of cooked soybeans every day. So my only thing I would encourage you to do is to balance 4 groups. Beans, the legume group, beans, lentils, peas, that's one group. Make sure you have vegetables, green vegetables, orange vegetables, that's another group. Have fruit, don't neglect them, and don't forget the whole grains. Don't have so much of one that you squeeze the others out. But beyond that, you interpret the diet any way you want.
Jesse at 1234, really changing gears here, asking about coffee. Is that bad for you?
Probably not, with regard to any serious things. In fact, a number of years ago, researchers started looking at coffee and Alzheimer's. And they found that if it's a cup a day, 2 cups a day, no big effect. But if a person has about 5 cups of coffee per day, their risk of Alzheimer's goes way down, or significantly down. That said, coffee is a vehicle for caffeine, and caffeine is addictive. And so what that means is that you're going to spend your life on a little bit of a roller coaster, where when it goes up, you'll be talkative and a little irritable, and when it goes down, you'll have a headache and feel crummy. Um, for some people, that's a bigger issue. For others, it's not an issue at all. But with regard to the big risks, heart disease, cancer, diabetes, I think coffee is going to get a not guilty.
1230, Dahana J. Do vegans need to have EPA and DHA for optimal health?
If you mean supplements, no, probably not. But here's what we know. Your body does need DHA and EPA. These are omega-3s. But your body takes the natural oils that are in plants. This won't be on the test, but the name of it is ALA, or alpha linolenic acid. That's an omega-3. It's got 18 carbons. And when you eat broccoli, chia seeds, flax, whatever, you get that ALA, and your enzymes in your body lengthen it to EPA and DHA, and your brain says, thanks, this is great. But where the issue comes in is that conversion to the longer forms is pretty slow. And so some people will say, well, that's because you're eating too much other fats that's tying up the enzymes, and there's truth to that. Others will say, I'm impatient, I just want to take EPA and DHA as a pill. You can. Fish oil contains it, but if you go on to Amazon or anywhere online and you look up vegan DHA and EPA, they sell that too. So you can use that. One last thing I might just mention. There are risks to supplementing with omega-3s, and that's given a lot of us serious cold feet. The big risk is prostate cancer. We don't know why this is. We really don't know why, but men who have higher levels of DHA and EPA have higher risk of prostate cancer. So be cautious about that. With that in mind, there are some people who will test themselves, and there's a company called Omega Quant. There are other companies too, where for something like $50, they'll send you a little card. You put a dot of blood on the card, mail it back in, and they'll tell you what your EPA and DHL level is, and you can decide then if you want to supplement or not.
All right, let's take a couple of more questions here before we close up the doctor's mailbag today. This one comes to us from Faye Emery at 1231. Says they're postmenopausal. It seems like a magnesium supplement has helped them sleep more deeply and uninterrupted. Can that magnesium supplement really be helpful?
Maybe. If you were low in magnesium, perhaps. I'm very hesitant to say that anything is actually a placebo, although I guess you couldn't really rule it out. But if anybody's having trouble sleeping after menopause, and it's because of they're having hot flashes where your temperature regulation just seems to have a mind of its own, and 3, 4, 5 times a night you're getting a little too warm, and that's what's waking you up. Do try the WAVES approach, WAVS, that we discovered with the women's study for the alleviation of vasomotor symptoms, which is vegan diet, very low in fat, half a cup of cooked soybeans a day. And for so many women, they start sleeping through the night really, really well because their hot flashes are under control.
All right. And final question comes from PJ Watkins at 1237. PJ writes that my daughter has Crohn's disease and her doctor has recommended that she does not eat beans. What is your take on that? Obviously, we can't get into specifics here, but in generalities.
I'd encourage you to get a second opinion on that. It is true that in decades past, people thought that a high fiber diet could be harmful and so forth. But then we've discovered since then quite the reverse. High fiber foods are very, very helpful. And we not only want to bring in the whole grains and beans and vegetables and fruits, but we want to exclude animal products and greasy foods. Everybody with Crohn's is a little bit different, but for many, it has been an absolutely life-changing experience to get on a plant-based diet. Here on the Exam Room Live, we've talked about Crohn's and inflammatory bowel disorders, and there are some wonderful experts here that you'll see in prior episodes. And let me encourage you to take a look at that as well.
Absolutely. And one of the easiest ways you can do to search that out is head over to pcrm.org/podcast or head over to Apple Podcast or Spotify. Look for the Exam Room by the Physicians Committee and just look for those episodes and subscribe while you're there and leave a 5-star rating if you would be so kind. I want to say hi to Edith as well before we wrap things up. Edith, your comment about soy and Dolly Parton absolutely made me fall out of my chair. You didn't see it because Dr. Barnard was on the screen at the time, but God bless you for putting that in the chat today. Okay. Also, before we close up today, I want to take a second again to say thank you so much to Allison Mahoney and the Gregory J. Ryder Memorial Fund for their support of the Exam Room Live. We could not do this show without you. And Dr. Barnard, as we have talked about so many times, the Gregory J. Ryder Memorial Fund is really just so remarkable because it just carries on everything that Greg held dear to his life, the passion that he had for promoting a vegan diet and the love of animals and animal welfare. And if you head over to gregoryryderfund.org, you see the address on the screen there. That's Ryder, Reiter fund.org. You can learn all about the great work that Allison and the team there are doing. You can even sign up for their newsletter there, and I highly encourage you to do that. And again, Dr. Barnard, you and I know Allison very well, and she is just really among the nicest, most genuine people on the face of the earth.
She sure is. Greg had such a warm heart. He had such a love of animals and was such a kind and loving person in general. And Allison has carried on his memory in such a generous way. So thank you for changing the world as you are.
And lastly, you heard us mention here on the program today the series that we've done on our groundbreaking WAVES study, all about soy and menopause. Well, the third installment of that, the third and final installment, will be released on the Exam Room podcast tomorrow. So again, head over to Apple Podcast or Spotify, wherever you get your podcast from. Look for the Exam Room by the Physicians Committee and hit that subscribe button, because tomorrow, 3 a.m. Eastern Time, this episode will be released that features Dr. Christy Cobb, and she and I are going to be talking about the intimate side of menopause. What is sex life after menopause? She's going to tell us ways to keep things spiced up in the bedroom. What role does diet play in that? What are the current treatments versus how a diet adjustment can help there as well? So we're going to get into that. And Dr. Barnard, I know that you're going to be there as well with your tips for incorporating soy into the diet. So it's going to be a really, really great show. Again, head over to Apple Podcast, hit that subscribe button, and just wait. Overnight, you're going to get hit with the third and final installment in that groundbreaking series about menopause. But Dr. Barnard, my friend, that is all the time that we have today. I want to say thank you again for your time and for being here.
Great. Thank you, Chuck.
And to you, exam roomies, who have been watching and raising your health IQ with us, appreciate you as always. And to the crew behind the scenes making the magic happen, you guys make us look so very good. So thank you very much for everything that you do as well. And for everyone here at the Physicians Committee, I am the weight loss champion, Chuck Carroll. We'll talk to you again soon. But until then, keep it plant-based.